Alright, welcome back to the Roblox course, and in this lecture we're going to start creating our own first game. And it's going to be Obby simply because of the fact that they are very easy to create. Now, of course, to create a great and fun Obby, it's going to take a lot more knowledge that we actually need to acquire, but I think that in this case, starting with an Obby is a very smart idea. Now, the first thing that we're going to do is we're actually going to just delete the base plate or straight out, and we're going to create a new part here. It's going to just float in the air, and we're going to rescale it to something like, let's go back down here to the size, and we're going to say 25, 125, and it's going to be at position 0, 0, 0. I like that. And then I want to add a spawn as well. We can of course just add this by pressing the plus on the workspace and then adding a spawn location, and let's just actually add this at 0, 0, 0 as well. I think that that's fine. Great. So now when we spawn, what's going to happen is we're going to spawn right there. And oh yeah, of course, that's going to fall down because it has to be anchored. So that's one of the most important things, right? So we don't have a base plate, so of course everything else is going to fall down. And so we're gonna spawn looking into a certain direction. In that direction, I actually want to resize the plate here a little bit into that direction. So let's see when we size it into there. That is not quite the way we are looking. So we're actually gonna just size it into this direction, and we're gonna build this part out into this direction. Right, there we go, right? And, well, let's then just play, and let's see. Yeah, now we sort of have a runway, right? So where we can go in, and it's maybe a little bit too far in. Let's say something like this. And then I'm just gonna, quickly make something. Let's add another part here, and we're gonna do something like this. So we're gonna go to the part, and we're gonna make it a little bit bigger. So I've thought about doing something like this, and then we're gonna start to actually rotate it. But so this is something that happens. It's quite important. So if we want to rotate something and another part is in the way, then of course it doesn't work because they can collide. So this is the can collide behavior property here. We also want to set the anchor property, otherwise it's just going to fall down again. And that's, of course, not something that we want. I'm actually going to the orientation, I'm actually going to reset it to 90. And then I'm going to also turn on the 45-degree rotation so that right now our rotations are fine. So let's just say something like this. And then we're going to copy this by pressing Control-C and Control-V to paste it in. And then we can do something like sort of some steps, right, that have to be trespassed, and you have to. It's not quite a jumping puzzle, but sort of where you have to jump from one to the other. And the good thing about it is that you can just play around with it a little bit. Use some of those parts and just copy and paste them now. And now we can, for example, maybe rotate one of them so that we have something like this. And do something like that. Yeah, and then what's important is to always try out the thing that you've created. So for example, at this moment in time, so this is a jump that we can make. This is, all fairly easy. Now this is a little bit of a harder jump, but not that hard, And yeah, so this is something that we can do. Then of course, we can also change some of the colors, right? So that to make it a little bit more colorful. In this case, we're not gonna create any new textures or anything, but we can of course use the materials here to make it even more something that we can call our own, let's say. And let's make this, let's say a yellow. Yeah, that's pretty good. Right, and then we can, for example, copy this again, and then move all of the parts at the same time. Something like this, and then we're gonna also get them higher up a little bit. So to here, and then let's move them along a little bit further. And then let's move them, on their own again. So maybe we can take this one and rotate it as well. So we can rotate it like this. So this is, of course, just, let's say, you can just let your creativity, completely just do anything that you want here. These are, of course, just examples I'm showing, just so that you have sort of an idea of how to model it, let's say. And, well, that's maybe a little bit too high up, but I think that that's fine for, let's say, the first part of this obby. And let's see what we can see. So let's jump from one to the other, and let's see if actually all of the jumps work. Let's see, oh, there you go. Okay, we're gonna have to try this again. Now, I have actually thought about this before, where it's like, well, how often am I gonna have the have deaths inside of the oh, that was actually really close. Now this one, there we go, and then this one, let's go. Okay. Well, it worked, so I'm gonna count this, and then we can just copy, let's say, this platform here and move it over into this direction so that it serves as a sort of checkpoint system. And I think that that's gonna be fine, and something like that. For testing purposes, what I would argue is the best thing is to just bring the spawn platform over, because we've seen that this, part works, and then the second part we can just, do it like this, because we're always going to spawn from the spawn location, so it makes sense to actually move it over for testing purposes. Now, the next thing I thought about was actually, something similar, but a little bit different. So in this case, we actually have a, let's say, straight line where we have these blocks here, and we actually have to just, jump from one to the other with no height variation. But what I want to have like a line of, let's say, cannons. It could be cannons, it could be NPCs with something that are actually shooting, parts towards you, or maybe even rockets towards you, and you have to evade them while that's happening. So let's just add one more here, so something like this. Maybe something like that, and then a little further out, and then one more, let's say. It's actually just a straight jump. And yeah, and then let's add a new platform over here. And then we're going to add a new platform as well. So that's where the enemies or cannons basically can rest on, right? So this should be sort of exactly there. And then we can also do something like a wall at the back, so that it, that you can see that there's something there, right? So that it's not just a platform, but you could also, maybe do walls on these sides, but of course right now not necessary. So let's see, when we spawn here, everything's gonna fall down. We love to see it. This is of course, once again, the anchored modifier, or the anchored property. And then if we go in here, we can see that, if we so these jumps aren't the most difficult ones, he says, just as he is about to fall down. No, of course not. And then we simply just need to add the let's say, the things that shoot. We're going to do that in the next lecture. Right now, we're just going to go through and design the entire course, let's say here, the obby, and then we're going to see. So let's just also change the colors of these parts here, so that we have a little bit of a variation in colors. I like that. Yeah, that's good. Then we have a, let's say, like a violet one. Yeah. And then down here, sort of like a red brick one. Yeah, that's good. Right. And then, because we've seen we can do this, we can just take the spawn location over one again, and then continue with the other one. And now in this one, what I actually thought about was doing something interesting. So let's just copy this part, because this is going to be anchored already. Let's make it 15 by 15. Yeah, that's good. And let's move it over. Let's try to center it as best we can. Right, of course, those little adjustments as well are things that you can always do. When you publish a game, you can always publish changes to it as well. So that's also kind of important to know. And what I was thinking here actually was I wanted this to work in such a way that we have so this platform actually goes up and down like a like a lift on an elevator, and you actually have to get to this platform in a certain time, otherwise the elevator is going to be out of sync, so you actually have to wait here. So you can imagine that trying to get the best time, you would then want to go through this as fast as you can, or maybe wait at a certain point so that you can get the perfect cycle here. And then there is going to be something else as well, so this is going to be another part which we're going to rotate like this, and this one is going to be sort of like a seesaw. So this one is going to, if we center it, there you go. So this one is actually, what we're going to do is we're going to make it so that it constantly goes back and forth between this. Now, not at such a stark angle, but like a little bit faster and a little bit more continuous, let's say. And then you can make a choice whether or not you want to take one of 3 paths here. So, for example, we have this path in the middle, which is going to be something like this. So it's going to be a 45-degree angle. And then we have one in this direction. And then I'm going to copy this middle one. And we're going to have one in this direction. I'm going to make it so that they're roughly the same plane like this. And then this one's going to be a little bit higher up, and this one's going to be middle, and this one's going to be a little bit lower. And then to overcome this, it's actually going to be another moving part. So there are going to be a lot of moving parts right now. Once again, the functionality is added in the next lecture, because I first want to model it and then basically add all of the scripts and the functionality, because otherwise it's going to be like a 45-minute lecture. And I feel like, splitting it up into the modeling, which might be interesting for some people, but might not be interesting for others. I think that that's a good idea. Right, so those ones are just going to move up and down in a certain pattern. And then we're going to just copy basically those 3 parts. So you can, of course, select multiple ones by holding Control down and clicking the next one, and then we're gonna rotate those 45 degrees into this direction, and they're gonna be sort of the ramp down, let's say. So we actually have to jump over this, and those are, of course, when they move here, right? So when they move like this, it's gonna be more difficult. Right. And then they're gonna end up, so the player is gonna end up here, where we have maybe 2 more parts that are going to be seesaws, right, that are going to move like this. These 2 parts. And then let's get this one. We're going to change the colors after we've been done modeling. And then here, how about we're going to have like an absolutely crazy time of it. So let's say we're actually going to turn off the rotation by 45 degrees, and we're just going to go completely crazy, like flying blocks in the sky. Some of them are a little bit bigger, maybe. Some of them, maybe not. So let's scale this one, or let's rotate this one, something like this. And then maybe like that. We're gonna have to see whether or not we can actually do those jumps. That's, of course, one of the most important things. It should be challenging, but it shouldn't be, it shouldn't be outright impossible, because that's just gonna frustrate the players, and you're gonna get downvotes if you do that, of course. So let's rotate this one, a little bit like this. And this one is going to be rotated like that. So completely crazy. It's going to look like this. And then we're going to add this one maybe sort of in parallel to this, right? So we can think about how to, and then also let's rotate it. Yeah, let's actually rotate this up one. And then do something like that. And then in the middle here, we're going to add another one. It's going to be rotated like this. Yes, very good. Okay, so that's just, a crazy amount of, a crazy assortment of parts, basically. And then let's add a last part here. So this would be basically almost the finish line. And then we're also going to add more moving blocks here. So the last jump that you have to do maybe there's actually something like this. So maybe there's 2 ways that you can go. So maybe it's something like that, and then I'm gonna turn it around like this. This is gonna be turned similar, and so you can either go right or left, and then you have to decide based on the. So let's move this block to here and copy it over, and down here. Those are also gonna move in, let's say, opposite phases, right? So when one is up, the other is down, and so on and so forth, so that you actually have to think about whether or not you go left or right. You can always adjust the size, of course, once we started moving them. But overall, I think that's actually pretty good. So right now, this platform, of course, doesn't move. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna start ourselves like up here, and the movement, of course, I mean, once it moves, it's not gonna be an issue. So let's just see if we can do this. So this, of course, would be the seesaw, and this is a hard jump, but it is possible. This is a jump that's also possible. That's pretty good. Now this is barely possible, but it was possible, so we can maybe think about, you know, moving that a little bit closer. And then this one, also barely possible. Once those are seesaws, this jump is going to get a little bit easier, of course. Now this seems way too easy, so those are way too close together. He says as he falls down, but let's be honest, I do believe that they are definitely a little bit too close to each other. So we can just select everything and just move it up a little bit so that everything gets separated by at least a little bit. Right now, of course, these blocks were a little bit harder to land on simply because they have such a weird orientation, let's say. So let's start down there this time, and then let's see if the new distances are fine. That's okay. That's a little bit too far, I guess. Nope. So that's a little bit too far. Like I said, this is something that you need to play around with a little bit. Now, of course, excuse me, please. Can I please select everything? Yes, of course I can. There, that's very good. The RBXL file, so the file for this project is, of course, provided as a resource. So it's provided as a resource once with scripts and once without scripts, so that you can actually look at either the script one or the not script one. Now, the last jump, of course, would be absolutely insane. I don't think that you could make that. Now, you could put this down a little bit, and then maybe put it towards them a little bit, and then when they have a different phase, so let's maybe make one of those, something like that, then I think it might work easily enough. Now, some of those jumps at the back here are actually quite difficult, so this one is not as easy. This one looks kind of easy, but it isn't. And yeah, and then, so we can actually go through. We don't have any moving parts right now, so there are no scripts in this. And we also need to change the colors up just a little bit. So, of course, the colors are something that's, it's not necessary in that sense, but it is kind of nice to just have a little bit of a different feel to it. Make this one green. Let's make this one sort of something from the middle here. And then let's make this one something like that. And then, we can just go in and basically almost choose sort of random colors that we want. Yeah, maybe blue here. And then this one can be like a dark red. Yeah, and then this one dark red. Maybe this one green again. So you can either go the green path or let's say the blue path, something like that. And then this one is going to be, well, this was the green path, so let's make this green. And then this one blue again, so like a dark blue. This is going to be purple, and this is going to be sort of like a lime green. That's not quite lime green, but yeah. Yeah, and then, so all of a sudden it looks a little bit more varied. That's just kind of nice. And of course, once you add maybe even different types of textures and all of that, it could be even better. Now, what are the other things? So this is sort of the entire course. Once again, it is downloadable as a resource. I will also include the parts here into some different folders, because right now this is definitely not clean, let's say. Right, so now the parts are just random and we don't know what part is what. And yeah, so that's gonna be done for you so you can download it. Second thing we're going to do is we're going to add the moving platforms. So that's going to be in next lecture. So both this moving platform, these moving parts, the rotating parts, and the parts that go up and down here. And then in the third lecture, we're going to take a look at creating the, let's say, enemies or things that actually shoot out things, though you might fall down here. Right. And then in the last lecture, we're going to also add some checkpoints to each of the platforms, and then let's say just a win condition and also a timer so that you can know, okay, how long did I take to actually get going. Right. So that is it for this lecture for modeling the Obby. I hope you enjoyed it, you got something out of it, and of course, if there are any questions, always feel free to ask and I'll be sure to respond. And yeah.